There's this book called The Way of Superior Man by David Dida that has a law in it that's called lean just beyond your edge. And this law, more or less, is my favorite from this whole book. This book is amazing. I don't know if you buy it or not, just buy it because it's amazing. I recommend it a lot. So this law more or less says in any given moment, a man's growth is optimized if it leans just beyond his edge, his capacity, his fear. He should not be too lazy, happily stagnating in the zone of security and comfort, nor should he push far beyond his edge, trusting himself unnecessarily, unable to metabolize his experience. He should lean just slightly beyond the edge of fear and discomfort, constantly in everything he does. If you've been into self improvement for quite a long time or something, you probably heard about the phrase seeking for the uncomfortable or doing uncomfortable things for the lane gratitude. So David Data wrote this book. It has many really useful laws in it, but this law really changed my perspective because he presents this edge as something that we have, and we actually have this edge of fear when we feel fear of something, of doing something, of fear of being rejected before doing something. And he writes a lot of things about this. So I want you to think today about this, and I'm also going to give you some tips on how dealing with uncomfortable situations or feeling good doing uncomfortable things for delaying the gratification. So I have a question for you. Do you think you suffer enough in your everyday life? So there's this author called David Goggins. He wrote this book called Can't Hurt Me. This book's basically the story of his life, of how he became very successful because he ran a marathon. He lived in a horrible situation, but then he made through all of his habits and everything he had, and just turned into someone very successful and won marathons. Did like crazy marathon of 100 kilometers runs, and beat. He also beat the world record for most push pull-ups in 24 hours. Yes, more pull-ups in 24 hours. I also recommend this book if you don't know if you read it or not. Should read it or not, but I recommend it a lot. And there's this little phrase in this book that says you should be constantly seeking for pain in your everyday life. And this phrase got me thinking for quite a long time. And it's really important for you to seek for pain every day, constantly seeking for pain. Because pain makes us stronger, more or less related to this. So, for example, there's this analogy. I might use if you're not into gym and this stuff, so you probably won't understand that much. But if you are into exercising and those things, you probably understand more or less. So, how do you do progress in the gym, lifting weights? How do you do progress? You have to do an amount of repetitions, so you can hypertrophy your muscle. Basically, if you don't understand those languages, hypertrophy is basically breaking your muscle in some parts so you can regenerate later, making it bigger, more or less. Explain more or less. So, how can you reach the hypertrophy for your muscle? You need to do some repetitions with the weight, for example, until your failure, more or less, or at least close to the failure. So, well, for you to reach this failure, you need to failure. I mean, like in your last repetition, you can't barely move your hands. You won't be able to finish your repetition. But for you to reach this failure, you need to feel uncomfortable. You will probably feel uncomfortable doing this. Depending on the muscle, you feel a lot of pain. It's really bad, but anyway, you feel uncomfortable, and that works for everything. Everything, exactly everything. You can't grow You can't develop yourself without feeling comfortable. You need to understand this. You won't become a very successful person if you don't lean just beyond your edge. If you don't feel uncomfortable or if you don't risk, if you don't take risks, you won't become as successful as you want to. So putting those two books together of the Way of Superior Man and the book of David Goggins can hurt me. You can just have a whole view of why should you feel uncomfortable, more or less. That's not the actual point, but that's the main view that you need to have. Feeling uncomfortable is actually good. Feeling pain, not it doesn't need to be physical pain, it can be mental also. Feeling those pains, feeling this uncomfortable sensation is good depending on in what you're doing. So seek for pain every day. For good pain, not unnecessary pain, just hurt yourself. It makes no sense. For good pain every day for it to increase, become a good person. Now I'll give you 5 advices of how to get used to more or less to getting uncomfortable. You not get completely used to, but you help you to not give up more or less. Because if you there are some things that if you can end up giving up because you just lack motivation this stuff. So I'm gonna give you 5 advices very useful you can use in everyday life. So the first piece of advice is know your limits and progressive overload. So you need to know your limits for leaning beyond your edge. You need to know where you are and where you want to be. So for example, talking about social skills. If you want to improve your social skills, you just naturally need to talk to more people. But if you're someone that is shy and doesn't have many friends, you just won't be able to do this like now, for example. If you had to leave your house, go to the street and just start talking to random people, it's be quite hard. So what you need to do, you know your limit, I'm a shy person, I can't like to talk to many people as much as I want to. So what can you do is just start slowly. Just start, instead of just going to the street and talking to a random person, go to someone that you already know but not that much. And I don't know, make a simple question. Just ask what time is it? Just ask I don't know how's the weather, like anything. Just ask, where's this shop? And if you want, you can just jump straight ahead to talking to a random person in the street, asking about what time is it to this person in the street. That's find more complicated than talking to someone that you already know a little bit. So you need to go slowly. After you talk with 5 people in the street, asking about the location or what time is it, you just go, you upgrade and you progressive overload a little bit. So now, instead of talking to 5 people, you want to talk to 5 people and I don't know, say hello and introduce yourself, and that's it. And you progress a little bit. Instead of just asking what time is it, you say hello, introduce yourself, and if you can, continue the conversation. If you can't, you can just leave, and that's it. So after you do 5 of this, and after you do, for example, 10 or 15 of those, and you feel comfortable, you can go next and next in progressive overload until you just can talk to normal people. You can just present yourself to normal people in the street and just have good conversations with them and have friends or something. So you need to progressive overload. Don't go from here of the bottom to the top already, like introducing yourself, talking with them, and asking them out to play football, anything. Go slowly, because if you go from here to here, in I don't know, in one day, not in one day, but if you can in one day, perfect. But if you just don't develop yourself, you just end up lacking motivation to continue doing it. Understand? So you need to go slowly, but push yourself. If you don't push and if you don't go past fear, you won't be able to grow. So you will feel comfortable. There's nothing you can do. So if you go to the gym, you probably understand this. If you're starting the gym now, you probably start with lower weights. Then with weeks passing by, you increasing the weight each week or each 2 weeks or each month, doesn't matter. You increase and progressively overload, doing more repetitions than your last session, and you progressively overload. If you do what's called ego lifting. That's basically getting a weight that you can't actually handle it and do it without proper technique. You're just being do it for ego, And sometimes some people like doing ego lifting. It makes no sense because you're losing progress and they might injure themselves. So you understand, you need to progressive overload. There's no need for ego lifting, for going straight for the top when you have to progress overload and go step by step. So a second piece of advice is fear is your best friend. If you feel frightened by something, you have to go and do it. Believe me. If you feel if you feel like this thing in your heart that no, I don't know if I should do it, I don't know, just go and do it. To be honest, just go and do it. You feel awesome. You feel amazing if you do it. So this edge, if you respect your edge, if you know that the fear is in the limits of your edge, not in the limits, but a little bit like, for example, this is your edge and the fear is like here, you know that it's something that you need to, it's a little bit hard, you need to lean beyond your edge, but you think you can do it and go and do it. Believe me, you should feel comfortable with fear. David Dita says this in the book, in his book, that we should feel good. We shouldn't feel bad when you feel this fear, because we get adrenaline in your body when you feel fear, and it's good in general. So it's good to feel fear. When you feel frightened by something, I think you should do it. Analyze the situation first, but actually, I think you should do it in general. My third advice is to use logic to understand the consequences. So, okay, if you're going to ask someone out, for example, instead of just not doing it because you're scared or something, use your logic. Use your brain a little bit, just a little bit, and understand what's going to happen if the person rejects you. Just use your brain a little bit and understand what can happen. The person will say no, and then what? You just walk away and continue your life. That's it. That's literally it. You just walk away and that's it. So why not? Why are you not doing it? I know you've probably heard that many times. The same piece of advice. But there's two people that don't understand this advice. You actually use your brain to understand what could possibly go wrong. If you go slowly, knowing your limits, going past your a little bit past your limits and feeling comfortable doing things, going past your fears, you probably, and using your logic to understand there's nothing will happen. Or if it happens, it won't be that big. If you know your limit, it won't be that big. It won't be that big of like a deal for you. So why are you not doing it? What are you afraid of? You probably try to think, no, this will happen. No, stop. Remove this unnecessary thinkings of your mind. Just use your logic. Use your actual brain to understand what could possibly happen. Use your brain. Nothing will happen. And that's not for just for dating. It can be for business if you want to do investment. If you have the money and you see what that's good. You can use this money for this and for that. Why are you not doing it? My fourth piece of advice is regret is worse than failure. If you're into self improvement, you've probably heard that phrase many times, but it's true. Regret is worse than failure. If you find a situation to improve yourself, to test your skills, to test yourself, to lean beyond your limit a little bit, and you don't do it, you just give up and like go back, not do the thing, because you're scared, because you're frightened. After maybe one day or in the same day or this 1 minute after, you'll feel bad. you won't feel good because you won't even have tried to see if you could actually do the thing, to see if it could possibly work. So your mind will be just like a roller coaster for many days, weeks, months, or maybe years, maybe for your whole life. Just because you were scared, is it worth it? Is it actually worth it to not do something because you're scared? Do you want to feel this pressure to the rest of your life? To feel this sensation that you're a failure, knowing that you didn't even try? You don't want to feel that. So just go and do it. The regret, the pain of the regret is 20 times bigger than the pain of actually trying and failing. So go and do it. My fifth piece of advice is use this rule for everything in your life. Lean beyond your edge in everything in your life. That's quite obvious, but understand that can use this for everything: fitness, nutrition, business, relationships, creating a YouTube channel, anything, meditation, anything that you can think, you can use this, and it's just worth it. You just grow as a person. You just go past your limits and become bigger and stronger and more intelligent. The more pain you feel, the stronger you get. Don't get frightened. Just go and do it. I know I've repeated this like 9 times already, but there's nothing I can say. If you feel there's something that you need to do, something especially that is in your purpose, I'll make a video about purpose another day. But if you know that this will help your purpose and you need to do it, just go and do it. Lean beyond your edge. Walk through, like, step on your fears, and that's it. That's basically it. Here's an extra advice that I personally use quite a lot. There's this book called The Magic of Thinking Big. I don't remember the author, to be honest. Um, no, I don't remember the author. Okay, anyway, there's this. The beginning of the book talk about like believe in yourself or something like this, and says also that we have in our heads, we have Mr. Triumph and Mr. Failure. Yes, Mr. Failure. Mr. Triumph and Mr. Failure, they're basically the angel and the devil just in the cartoons and this stuff. They're always speaking to your heads, and the angel is always saying good things, why you should do things and things, and the devil is always saying give you bad suggestions and stuff. So you should always hear, if you can, just to the devil, to Mr. Failure, and just let Mr. Triumph hear before doing something that is uncomfortable. For example, what happens quite a lot to me is when I go to the gym, train legs, especially like when training upper body, nothing happens. But when I go straight train legs, I usually get really dizzy, like almost vomiting. Always, more or less always. Today it didn't happen, but anyway. After the workout, I just get completely demotivated. I wouldn't go to the gym if I didn't have Mr. Triumph with me, because after I work out, I'm feeling really bad, feeling dizzy, feeling horrible, basically. So then I just close my eyes or just walk in the streets and ask Mr. Triumph, Mr. Triumph, why should I continue doing legs? Why should I continue going to the gym? And then instantly, literally instantly, good thoughts start appearing in my mind, saying, it's good for your body, your health in general, your mental health improve, you're you're going through your limits, so you won't feel that it won't be that hard next time. You're getting big legs. So anyway, and I feel great. I said, okay, no, it makes sense. Next time I will train 3 times harder. Basically, I just start having these amazing thoughts that make me motivated for the next session. And this always happened every session, every leg session that I have. This always happened. I go train, almost pass out, then I leave the gym, thinking I'm not going to train legs ever again in my whole life. Then I asked Mr. Triumph, what should I do? And I always have the same thought saying, you get bigger legs, and I get motivated again, and that's the cycle. And I'm getting bigger, bigger, feeling comfortable every Saturday training legs, but anyway, it's working, and that's amazing. So that's one extra tip of advice I can give to you, using Mr. Triumph for your everyday life. For anything, anything. If you say, what should I don't know, study for this exam. Mr. Triumph, why should I study for the exam? Good thoughts start appearing in your mind and you get better. Basically, use Mr. Triumph for everything. But that's basically everything I have to say. Challenge yourself every day. Just search for challenge, search for pain every day. Challenge yourself, because if you challenge yourself, for example, imagine if you take 1 hour or 2 hours of your day, or even 30 minutes of your day, to do things that you're especially afraid of doing. 30 minutes every day. If you can, 1 hour or two, but 30 minutes every day to do things that you're afraid of doing. Imagine how much you grow. If you do this for 1 year without skipping any day, 364 days improving yourself every day. Imagine how much you grow in 10 years. In 10 years, you have no fears. You'll just be like, you won't be afraid of doing anything. So why not? Challenge yourself. Search for competition. Search for pain. And lean just beyond your edge.